guys, it's Amber from Amber Eats Books, and I'm here today to do my weekly reads. This is the video where I wrap up what I read this past week, tell you what I'm currently reading, and what I plan to read over the coming week. Now, this past week, I got a little distracted because my husband was off of work for a couple of days, so, we did those things that needed to get done around the house and spent some time, just going out and going for walks and shopping and things like that. So my week was just kind of a little bit more busy in a good way than I thought it was going to be, but it didn't leave as much time for reading as I wanted. So I didn't get to all of the books I wanted to this week, but I got to most of them. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. As always, I'm going to start with my least ranked books, then work my way up to my highest ranked. Now, this week wasn't a bad reading week at all because my lowest ranked books, I had two, were 3 stars, which are perfectly enjoyable books. The first book was The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Beddor. This is a reimagining of Alice in Wonderland. It is a very well detailed reimagining of Alice in Wonderland. However, there were a few problems with it. I will say, just overall, I really enjoyed the story. I thought that the world that he had created, not only was this taking place in Wonderland, but he kind of branched out with that, and that actually was fascinating to me. The characters that he imagined and came up with were really great concepts. I really enjoyed quite a few of them. However, I did feel that the plot was a little lacking as far as it would be really slow, then all of a sudden a lot of action would happen in like just a couple of minutes, then really slow, then a lot of action. And for me, I don't know, I just didn't fully connect to our main character Alice as much as I wanted to. I really wanted to fall in love with the story, and I didn't fall in love. I fell in like with the story. I did like it. I felt like the characters could have been developed even more, and we could have gotten a little bit more background or a little bit more emotional connections with them that we just did not end up getting. I know this is the first book in a series. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue with the series. I just wasn't, like I said, in love with the book, so I just don't know if I want to go on. I am going to have my daughter read this. I think she would really enjoy it. And if she likes it, I might pick up the second and third book in the series for her to read. And if she really likes them and really says, Mom, you have to read this, I might pick it up at a later date. But as of right now, I just don't have any intention of picking it up. But the first sentence in this book was, everyone thought she had made it up, and she tolerated more taunting and teasing from other children, more lectures and punishments from grown-ups than any other 11-year-old should have to bear. The next book that I read was Magic Bites by Ilona Andrews. This is an urban fantasy. It follows the story of Kate Daniels, who is like this mercenary who's sent to clean up these magical problems. She has magic powers of her own, and someone close to her was murdered, and she's trying to figure out what really happened. This was my first go round with urban fantasy. I'm not going to get too much into this review, only because I think we may post separate buddy read review videos, so I'll just give you a brief little glance at what I thought. I enjoyed it. I just don't know if urban fantasy is for me. I will definitely go into that more in my review video, but the first sentence of this book was, I sat at a table in my shadowy kitchen, staring down a bottle of Boone's Farm hard lemonade, when a magic fluctuation hit. The next book that I read this week is another one that I'm reading for a read-along, so I'm just gonna show you guys and give you a brief little what I thought about it. I'm actually reading Goosebumps books this month for the Goosebumps Along. Richard over at Books and Bullshit is hosting it, and this was the first book. I read this with my youngest daughter. I read it aloud to her, and it was really good. It was so cute. This is called The Headless Ghost. It was, I can't even explain it. It was really adorable, and I enjoyed it much more than I thought I was going to, which is always a nice surprise. So if I had to rate this book, I'd give it 4 stars. But we are actually, my daughter and I, when the we're done reading the books and watching the episodes for these on Netflix, we are going to post our own little wrap-up video. So stay tuned for that. I think it'll be in about 2 weeks because we still have 2 more books to get through. We're doing 1 book a week. But it was really fun, and I'm so glad that I decided to participate in this, especially with my daughter because she's having a blast too. So the first line of this book was, Stephanie Alpert and I haunt our neighborhood. The last book that I got to this week was Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. I gave this 4.25 stars out of 5 stars. This series is quickly becoming one of my favorite fantasy series. I didn't know that I would love a fantasy series set on water, in ships. I didn't know that. I don't really have much experience, you know, on the ocean or anything like that. So I just find it really fantastical, and I find it immersive and just something that takes my mind off, you know, everyday life. I can really get away when I'm in one of these stories. The amount of detail that goes into these books is incredible. It does take me quite a bit of time to get through them. I think I've been averaging about 4 days with these books. This is the second one, and it took me 4 days again to get through it. So I think the next time when I read book 3, I'm not going to make such a crazy, ambitious TBR for that week. I'm just gonna kind of scale it back, maybe read this and 1, maybe 2 other books depending on their size as well, because I couldn't get to all the books I wanted to read this week because this one just took me so long to get through. But it was really worth it. I adore the characters. This book is told from so many different perspectives that you just never get bored. You don't get bored of any one character because you're always constantly switching back and forth. And I'm really loving that between this series and the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks that I'm reading. It's the same thing. You just keep switching back and forth, and I just don't get bored that way. With some regular standalone books, sometimes it can get boring when it's only told from one character's perspective, but not with these. And the world building in these books is fantastic. I think when I finish all 3 books, I'm going to do a full series review because that way I can get into it a little bit more than I can in just these weekly wrap-ups. Especially, I may include a little bit of spoilers and things like that for people that have already read the series. This review is just more for people that haven't read it. But anyway, the first sentence of this book was, below the serpents, the beds of weeds swayed gently in the changing tide. So those were all the books that I finished last week. The book that I'm currently reading and enjoying immensely is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I am loving this book. I am, let me see, 127 pages in, and it's really good so far. It's going to places where I didn't think it was going to go, and it's just really refreshing the amount of imagination and the amount of care that was put into the writing. So loving this book, and I will let you guys know how it is when I wrap up next week. Now we're getting into the part of the video where I tell you what I would like to read for this coming week. I probably was a little ambitious when I made this TBR because my best friend is coming in for the entire week. Since it's my birthday week, we try to spend my birthday week together every year. And I just don't know if I will get to all of them, but I will certainly try. The one book I didn't get to last week that I'm definitely putting at the top of my TBR for this week is The Zookeeper's Wife by Diane Ackerman. This is the story of a zookeeper and his wife in World War II who actually helped save over 300 people. I would love to get to this because it just sounds really interesting, and I've been in such a mood for another World War II book since I finished Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. So really excited to get to this. The next book that I plan on reading, I've been wanting to get to in October for a couple of weeks now. I've just been like so excited to be able to read it during Halloween month. So that is Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk. It says, Haunted is a novel made up of 23 horrifying, hilarious, and stomach-churning stories. They're told by people who have answered an ad for a writer's retreat and unwittingly joined a Survivor-like scenario where the host withholds heat, power, and food. As the storytellers grow more desperate, their tales become more extreme, and they ruthlessly plot to make themselves the hero of the reality show that will surely be made from their plight. This is one of the most disturbing and outrageous books you'll ever read, one that could come only from the mind of Chuck Palahniuk. So, just sounds amazing. I really can't wait to get to it. So after I read Salt of the Sea by Ruta Sepetys, I had fallen in love with that book. It was just really good. It was such a gripping story and something that was different than what I've read before. So I immediately after reading that book went on to my library's website and requested Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys, and it came in. So I really want to get to it this week because the first book I read by her anyway was so good that how could I not read this? So hoping that it lives up to the same standard as Salt of the Sea, because that was such a fantastic book. So the next book that I found this week to read was at my local library. And I really have to stop going to my library because I have all these books on these shelves that I haven't read. But yet every week I go to the library, sometimes twice a week, and I find more books that I want to read, and these books never get read. But anyway, that's a story for another video. The book that I found and I'm excited to read is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I've just heard so many good things. I know this has to do with video games and some sort of competition or something like that. I didn't really go too far into it because I don't want to know a lot about it before I read it, but it sounds like something that's going to be really, really fun to read. And the last book that I am going to I'm definitely going to read because I'm going to be reading it with my daughter, is the next book in the Goosebumps along, and that is The Ghost Next Door by R.L. Stine. So we had so much fun reading last week. I hope you will have just as much fun this week, and I hope this story is just as creepy and as fun as the one that we read. The next book I also found at my local library when I just walked in and got books that I probably shouldn't have been getting, but anyway. And that book is Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. Now this describes itself as 5 mysterious spine-tingling stories follow journeys into and out of the eerie abyss. And this is a graphic novel. So I just thought, with a busy week coming up, and I already had 4 other books that'll probably take up most of my week, plus the one I'm still currently trying to read, that throwing in a graphic novel would just be a very nice change of pace. I don't have too much experience with graphic novels, as I have said in a previous video, but I really want to love graphic novels. So I saw this and I thought it would just be perfect for October, and I had to have it. So hopefully it will be really good and I will be able to gush about it next week. So those are all the books that I have to show you. I know I'm probably going to come back next week and say, I didn't really get to these books, but I have to, because the week after the one coming up is Spookathon, and I have 5 very ambitious books to read for that as well. So hopefully I will get through all of these books. If you guys have read any of these books and want to give me your opinions, please comment down below. As always, I hope you guys have a great week and happy reading.